What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with another episode of little rankings battles that we got going. We go through our rankings, we compare them to ECR. We say why ECR is wrong, why we're wrong, why everyone's wrong, because fantasy football is that much fun. Danny, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well. Just ready to again go through
I
these
interrupted
rankings.
your wine sip there.
We're all good. Don't worry. I'll get enough going throughout this video. But yeah, just excited. I mean, we are going into week 10 of fantasy. Well, actually, it started because we're recording this after Thursday Night Football. Maybe we could touch up upon that a little bit. But just excited. I'm in a big matchup myself. Actually, had four guys go off on Thursday night. Jonathan Taylor and
I
Corey
had AJ
Davis.
Brown, so that's
Yeah,
fun.
I had Jonathan Taylor and Corey Davis on my end, and the other guy had Derrick Henry and AJ Brown. So like, just a garbage mixture of players.
But his players were better than yours, so the fact that they did bad is
Yeah,
definitely helpful.
he's going out of that up by 0.1, and I have all my better studs going on Sunday, including my newly acquired Alvin Kamara. So we could see what happens. But if I win this, I go to 6-4, living the nice life. Other than three total teams in that league, one team's at 8-1, and two are 3-6 and 2-7. Everybody else is either 5-4 or 4-5 in that league. So I don't know. We're excited. If you guys are in similar situations like that or whatever, we're going to help you guys get through those wide receiver 2, RB2, flex type decisions that is going to be facing in your lineups. But before we do that, get hand the intro. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to start off our rankings with our quarterback discrepancies. So, Bush, you can take it away with this one. Who are your biggest differentiations between your own rankings and how ECR has the quarterbacks laid out?
Yeah, for the most part, like the top, I don't know, 12 to 15 quarterbacks are relatively similar, not too much discrepancy all the way around. The only guy I had really a bit lower was Justin Herbert, just because the Dolphins matchup was a bit harder. But Cam Newton is a guy I have 5 spots higher than consensus. And the reason is they have him at quarterback 19 right now. I think the floor is too high with Cam Newton. Even in a bad game, quarterback 19 is pretty low. I don't anticipate him with the rushing volume that he gets, with basically only one play being in the playbook when they're on the goal line, which is run Cam up the middle.
Yeah.
I just don't see a way that Cam Newton is ever going to be ranked outside my top 15, just because I feel very confident in Cam Newton not busting each week, as opposed to, like, maybe the ceiling's not necessarily there, even though we did see a pretty good game out of him against the Jets. But I don't see a world where Cam Newton is like quarterback 27 on the week.
No, I fully agree. I mean, it's so funny when you actually look at Cam Newton's season as a whole right now. Like, they're 8 games through as a team. He's on pace for 4 passing touchdowns and 16 rushing touchdowns. Like how does that happen? How does he escape the first 8 games of the season as a quarterback with 2 passing touchdowns? Like,
Because
it's just
Jacoby Myers is his number one receiver. That's how
oh.
that happens.
Well, we'll get into Myers a little bit, but he's pretty enticing for me. But anyways, let's get into the quarterbacks right now. The one that I am just intrigued about, that I've been talking about all week, talked about him on the waivers, talked about him on the live stream. I mean, it's an unproven option. I always feel like I'm going spicy at the quarterback position every week, it seems. But I mean, I'm going with Tua Tagovailoa, who I have 5 spots higher than consensus. I know it's fucking gutty having him here, but I'm taking the chance on the upside with this guy. I mean, second career, NFL start, 21.42 fantasy points against Arizona. I mean, he went toe-to-toe with Kyler Murray, ended up going victorious against those Arizona Cardinals, a very tough team in general. And this week, he's actually has a rookie quarterback matchup, if you will, against Justin Herbert. Now, I'm going to break down the objectivity of why it's a favorable matchup. But if you're looking at it in terms of a overall, like, headline, if you will, or a narrative, if you will, I know we don't play by narratives, but if you're thinking in the back of Tua Tagovailoa's mind, this is a guy in Justin Herbert who was picked 1 pick after Tua. Everybody's been touting Justin Herbert as the rookie of the year, the best quarterback thus far from the rookie class. If you don't think that'll have some type of chip on Tua's shoulder, I just think you're dead wrong. Or not you, but I'm saying general consensus. I mean, when you're looking at it, this is a guy who's the 5th overall pick 2 games in, and yet people are already saying, oh, the Dolphins made a mistake by taking him over Justin Herbert just because of how good Herbert's look. I think he's going to go out on Sunday against the Chargers and their 5th worst defense against the quarterback position, and it's just going to light them up. I mean, I have him currently as my quarterback 9. Again, gutty, but this is a guy to me that his ceiling is through the roof, similar to what we've seen with Herbert, where he could do it with his arm, he could do it with his legs. I do think that Tua has that type of dynamic feel to his game, and what ultimately should be one of the highest scoring, highest paced games of the week, in my opinion, with the Dolphins versus Chargers matchup.
Yeah, so you touched on it already, but would you consider the Raiders a good matchup for quarterbacks?
Yes.
The Texans, the
Yeah.
Browns, the Lions, the Cowboys. Well, the
Yeah.
Chargers are giving up more points to quarterbacks than all those teams. So I know we kind of, at least on the surface, most NFL fans would assume the Chargers have a pretty good defense because they've had a good defense for the last couple of years because they have guys like Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram, and they drafted Kenneth Murray, and they have Casey Hayward still and Chris Harris Jr., who's actually out. But they have not been good against the pass, and I think Tua is probably going to have a decent game. I actually have him 3 spots lower than consensus. Mine is more so just I want to see it first. I have him below guys like Joe Burrow and Ryan Tannehill, who, I mean, had a bad game last night, but Cam Newton and like Baker Mayfield, just because I trust those guys more. Maybe Baker, probably not the smartest idea, but I want to see it with Tua first. That's kind of my thing. I don't want to put him up into the top like 12. I'm assuming is where you have him.
Oh, higher. I was going to say, like, I fully understand the aspect. Again, putting a unproven dicey type of option in where I have him right now, quarterback 9, is very gutty, very risky. But man, I just think the upside, the overall range of outcomes with this guy this week, objectively, he's going to be good. He's going to be good. Now, could he throw 135 yards and 2 interceptions and have a rookie day? I'm not saying that's out of the question, but if you're looking at it based on matchup, based on performance, based off the overall situation of the game, I just can't see that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. I definitely think he's going to have probably a pretty good game. 2 other guys that I want to talk about are as like streamers, guys that you could probably pick up off the waiver wire and start if you really need to. If you have, I mean, who's on bye this week? Matt Ryan on bye or Patrick Mahomes on bye or something like that.
Garrett Gilbert.
Alex Smith +4 I have on consensus. The Lions are absolutely garbage against the pass. It's going to be a good day for Terry McLaurin, and that's obviously going to affect Alex Smith as well. It's probably going to be a good day for the in the passing game for the 2 running backs. It'll probably be, I mean, I've heard people talk about Cam Sims as like a DFS dart throw and stuff like that. Maybe Logan Thomas does something. I think Alex Smith is going to be usable in this game. Is he going to get 4 touchdowns and 300 passing yards? Probably not. But if he has 2 touchdowns and 250 yards, he can also run a little bit too. Maybe he gets like 30 yards rushing. Like I could totally see a day like that out of Alex Smith, similar to kind of like a Kirk Cousins, like Derek Carr type passing day from him. And another guy that I want to talk about too is Nick Mullins. I have 5 spots higher than consensus. Mullins is pretty much just as good as Jimmy Garoppolo, in my opinion. And if Jimmy were playing against the New Orleans Saints, I would say Jimmy is borderline streamable as well, because, I mean, I know they looked suffocating against the Tampa Bay Bucks, the Saints defense, but they're really not a good pass defense. They just apparently wake up every time Tom Brady and the Bucks are in town. And that, aside from that, they kind of give up passing yards and passing touchdowns like crazy. I believe they're top 10 in the NFL in terms of passing touchdowns allowed.
I fully agree. Again, talking about Alex Smith, I also have him 3 spots higher. I mean, this plays into it. Again, we're not really going to be talking about the top 10 receivers, but just for reference, if you guys do check out the site, I have Terry McLaurin right now as my wide receiver 2 on the week.
He's my wide receiver 5, and I thought I was high on him.
Yeah. I mean, I ultimately do think that they're going to have a good amount of success throwing the ball against the Lions this week, and Alex Smith is going to be the reason why Terry McLaurin is going to have a good week. Alex Smith, 3 spots higher for me. You mentioned as well Nick Mullins. I completely agree with that as well. Talking about a guy that I'm higher on, that I've been higher on, that I've talked about again on the waiver show, my second waiver option. I know, got to stick to my own little show, if you will. But man, Drew Lock, I do have 3 spots higher than consensus. And no, it's not just because these guys are on the waiver show. If you're looking at Drew Lock, though, 29.22 points against the Atlanta Falcons, albeit the worst team against the quarterback position. I understand that. But I mean, the Raiders are giving up the 5th most points to the position. And Locke, in his last 3 starts for the Broncos, 40 passing attempts, 41 passing attempts, 48 passing attempts. I mean, this is a high volume quarterback right here in a smash matchup. I understand the risk because we ultimately haven't seen it over a prolonged stretch with Locke, but I do think he can give you top 15 type upside on this week.
Yeah, I definitely could see that with Drew Lock. Again, he's more of just like, I'll take more proven guys above him. Like I have him and Tua in the same kind of range. I think they're definitely streamable. I don't hate the fact that you have them higher. A guy that I've kind of been We're just on brand like crazy right now. A guy I've always been higher on just in general as a player, but in terms of this week is Baker Mayfield. I have him 3 spots higher than consensus. Houston's going to put up points. We've seen ever since Bill O'Brien got fired that Deshaun Watson is cooking. He is throwing the ball all over the yard. Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks have had like 0 games with less than 10 fantasy points each, which is ridiculous since Bill O'Brien was fired. I think Baker Mayfield's going to have to put up points in this game. Could the Browns' run game go off? Sure, but I think Baker should have to throw a bit in this one and could see a big game as a result. I think I really like his weapons as well, his passing weapons. I have Austin Hooper significantly higher than consensus, and I have Jarvis Landry higher than consensus as well. Yeah. So I like the Browns' passing game to have a pretty sneaky good day in this one.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I have him right around consensus, but I definitely understand having him higher because, again, the matchup is so good. We expect, on the other end, Houston's going to put up points. I mean, Deshaun Watson's a top 4 quarterback. We both have Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller as top 20 receivers. Fuller actually is, I think, my wide receiver 10 this week. Like, this is going to be a high-scoring type matchup, and it's just going to be an exciting game to watch overall. Talking about an option that really isn't exciting, but I'm kind of intrigued by. And this is the dead zone of quarterbacks, in my opinion. This is realistically guys that either have a huge range of outcomes or a low ceiling. But out of those guys, I mean, Jake Luton, I have 3 spots higher than consensus. Now, I mean, that's not saying much considering he's so low on consensus, but he's my current quarterback 22 on the week. If you're actually looking at the situation again, he looked good. He looked efficient in his first start on Sunday. And Jair Alexander, I'm going to mention this with DJ Chark later on, but Jair Alexander is expected out for this game, and that should just have a huge impact on the overall success of the Jaguars offense. I mean, let's be honest, the Green Bay defense as a whole is not good. The reason why their pass defense was doing even anything was because Jair Alexander was the number 1 rated corner in football. With him out and facing off against that Green Bay offense that is going to put up a ton of points, I do think that Luton could be in store for a high volume type day, as I'm going to mention with Chark as well. But if you're looking at it, I do think he can be an intriguing quarterback 2 option. Now, if you're in a 1 quarterback league, you're definitely probably not going to stream him. But you're in a dynasty league, super flex, whatever, I do think he can give you ultimately a decent upside type of week. So I do have him 3 spots higher consensus. And on the flip side, a more known commodity in Nick Foles, I have 3 spots lower than consensus. I mean, this guy's the definition of stale. He has 1 game this season with over 18 points. 21 quarterbacks average that. Keep that in mind. He has 1 game.
Pretty sure Daniel Jones averages that.
Like, he has 1 game with over 18 fantasy points, which was 21, and 21 other quarterbacks average that. So, I mean, Monday night against a div rival and the red-hot Minnesota Vikings, I know at the beginning of the season they were really struggling against the pass, but they've really picked it up these last few weeks on their little win streak that they've had. So, I mean, overall, I just expect this to be a dogfight. I mean, the Bears have a really good defense. Minnesota's been playing a lot better recently. That ultimately, I just see this as like a 17-14 type of game. I mean, the Bears have looked really bad comparatively to what they were at the beginning of the season these last few weeks. So ultimately here, you're getting a low-end, low-ceiling, low-floor quarterback that's just quote-unquote proven, which is why he's holding his ranking. Well, I'll take unproven guys, again, like Luton over him if I'm considering any quarterback in that range.
Yeah, Nick Foles is disgusting. I would never start Nick Foles. Even against what was his only 21-point game? Was that against the Falcons? It probably was, right?
I think it was.
I think he came in halfway through that game too, because Trubisky started it. So anyway, I don't think I want to start Nick Foles in any given situation. You're right. I would definitely start a guy like Jake Luton over him. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have for the quarterback position. I have Derek Carr 3 spots lower than consensus. It's more of just a preference of I like other guys better than him. I don't really have anything against Derek Carr this week. I think he'll be fine in a Broncos matchup that, I mean, it's a little bit more of a tougher defense, but I still think he's going to be fine. It's probably going to be a sneaky high-scoring game as well. Do you want to move on to running backs then?
Yeah, I'm down. Let's do it.
All right, so we're kind of going to have to go through a lot of backfields because there's kind of a lot of news regarding running backs this week. So for starters, I have let's start with Gio Bernard. I have Gio Bernard like a significantly higher than consensus right now, but obviously that's because Joe Mixon hasn't officially been ruled out yet, but I think he's doubtful, right? So ETR hasn't likely caught up, as I mentioned, but Mixon being doubtful makes Gio a top 18 running back, in my opinion, but kind of at the back end of that for me, just because the Steelers are not an easy matchup, regardless that Bernard is going to get most of the work. It's still not a good matchup. You don't want your running backs going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I have Bernard up there in the top 20 because you can start him because he's basically a workhorse running back anytime Mixon's out of the lineup. But I don't expect like a huge day out of him in what I consider to be the best run defense in the league right now.
Oh, no, I fully agree. Again, I have Gio as I think the RB16 in my rankings right now. And that, again, it's not going to show on the screen because obviously the rankings are going to be on the screen. I forgot to actually input that. And given how laggy the site is sometimes, I'm just going to mention to you, yes, I did move Gio up to 16 after the Mixon news. But yeah, I mean, if Mixon misses, one of the key common thoughts in fantasy football, if Mixon misses time, Gio Bernard is in your lineup. There's just no other way to put it because Gio Bernard is going to see a ton of work in this game. Yes, the matchup is bad. I fully understand that. But given volume and given the scarcity of the position, you're not going to have much better options than him. There's just not many options that are in store for as much volume that Gio Bernard is going to be facing this week.
Yeah, and let's talk about a couple backfields where you do have an option. They're not necessarily great options, but you can use them. So I'll talk about Troy Pope real quick. I have him 23 spots higher than consensus. We know that Justin Jackson is going to be out for this game already. Thankfully, Austin Eckler seems like he's going to be coming back soon, so we don't have to deal with guys like Troy Pope very much longer. But I'll take Pope as the highest scoring running back from this backfield. In my opinion, I think he's going to outscore Josh Kelly this week. Miami's defense is a lot better against the pass than the run, so this is probably the way you want to beat them, even though Justin Herbert's been incredible thus far this season. And you've touched on it many times that the Chargers running backs catch passes regardless of who's in there, whether it's Eckler, whether it's Jackson, whoever it is. Like Kalen Balazs caught a lot of passes last week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Troy Pope has shown he's kind of explosive. Josh Kelly has shown he's not. So I'll go with Troy Pope, even if they're like splitting work.
For sure. This could sound pretty crazy based on like what we expected going into the season. But like the Troy Pope, Josh Kelly this week can end up being like what we've seen with Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor. Like you expect the other guy to be a better back, but he just doesn't perform like it. Anyways, I don't need to go off on Jonathan Taylor because everybody who plays and watches football, like it's just disappointing. But anyways,
okay, I want to give my thoughts on Jonathan Taylor real quick, just because I see a lot of people going like, "Don't panic about Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is going to be just fine." I think that's the wrong sentiment. I'm panicking about Jonathan Taylor.
Absolutely.
Because we're not talking about a tight end. We're talking about a running back. Running backs, generally speaking, will peak on the rookie contract, and they will peak probably starting in their rookie year. You know, as soon as a running back gets into the NFL, that he should be performing right away. And the fact that Jonathan Taylor is not makes me think he's a lot like David Montgomery or someone that was kind of highly touted coming out of school, had a lot of tread on the tires, and just isn't really the player that we thought he was. That's kind of what I think of when I see Jonathan Taylor. And when I see these dynasty polls, you put one in our group chat yesterday saying like, who would you rather have? Jonathan Taylor, who's 21 years old, or Aaron Jones, who's 25? I'll take 2 years of Aaron Jones over Jonathan Taylor's entire career based on what I've seen of Jonathan Taylor.
It was funny because I see all these like sheep things on Twitter, and I know you guys always roast me because I put sheep takes into the Twitter group chat, just like laughing at them. But it's just true. Like, how are people realistically like Aaron Jones is a top 5 running back?
Jonathan Taylor's 16, and I get him for 20 years on my dynasty team. I don't want him over Aaron Jones.
Yeah, easily. I mean, it's just funny when you think about it. Like Jonathan Taylor has the vision of Trent Richardson. This guy couldn't find a hole if it was right in front of him. Like he would find a way to just bounce it into some fucking random defender. That's like, I don't understand. You're a running back. It should be instinctual. You should know where your holes are going to be. That just shows me that Jonathan Taylor is not prepared going into games. The fact that he doesn't have the proper vision to be able to anticipate where the hole is going to be. Because let's be honest, vision is instinctual and vision can be developed based off numerous hours of preparation. Ultimately, because if you ultimately watch a film of your own team, of an opposing defense, you can kind of instinctively be able to recognize what type of look you're getting every single time you touch the ball. So anyways, let's get off Jonathan Taylor because it just bothers me because you're a 6'1", 230-pound back who can run a 4.39, but you can't hit a hole. Like it's sickening. It's sickening to watch.
My thoughts on him is if you have him in a dynasty league, and I guarantee there's going to be a million fantasy analysts out there that are going to go, oh, buy Jonathan Taylor low. He's like he's still the exact like elite talent that we saw at Wisconsin. No, he's not.
No.
Like I don't usually say 8 games into a guy's career that he's a bust, but the dude looks like a bust to me, to be honest. Like I don't see the same runner that I saw at Wisconsin. And even at Wisconsin, you could see glimpses on his tape of him lacking vision and him just being a better athlete, bigger, faster, stronger than everyone else. And that's why he ran home runs back. Like he kind of looks like Leonard Fournette out there, to be honest. I think that's pretty, and I mean Leonard Fournette now, not like Leonard Fournette in his rookie year at LSU.
Oh, the fact is, I've seen like polls saying, who would you rather have right now for a dynasty team? Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, and like the polls leading Jonathan Taylor. Like DeAndre Swift looked like the good fantasy football running back, real life running back. He's looked miles better. So like, why are we just stuck to our roots? Oh, this guy was the 101, the 102 going into the season. We have to keep him there. No, he's looked like a fucking bum out there.
And why it's a talent issue too? It's not like, oh, it's not like J.K. Dobbins where he's getting 9 touches a game and he looks electric on all those touches. No, it's literally a talent issue because this guy started out getting workhorse volume and really didn't do much with it. And I said back in like week 3 and 4, I was like, the game's not slowing down for him. He doesn't look like he looks like he's thinking too much. He doesn't look like he's hitting holes with burst and like confidence. Anyway, let's get off of Jonathan Taylor. We've been talking about him for a while. So let's breeze through a couple backfields because there is a lot of injuries this week. And so Devontae Freeman is out. Wayne Gallman, I have 7 spots higher than consensus. I have him as a top 24 running back because, I mean, we saw with the volume he got. I know Alfred Morris is there, but I don't really think he's going to get too much volume. So I think if you have Wayne Gallman or if he's on your waiver wire, which he was in a couple of leagues that I'm in, you could pick him up and honestly just throw him right into your lineup for the next couple of weeks because Devontae Freeman's on IR now, and he's going to be out for 3 weeks. And then DJ Dallas, real quick, I want to talk about too. I have him 13 spots higher than consensus, but I also have Carlos Hyde quite a bit higher than consensus because he is practicing. And Chris Carson, on the other hand, hasn't practiced a lick all week. So he's probably going to be out for this game. And DJ Dallas only saw 31% of the snaps last week from this backfield. And I think I don't think he's like a top 15 running back. Like I think both of us were really high on him last week. And he kind of disappointed from what we expected of him. I think he got into the end zone, ended up saving his day. But he's at RB 29 for me because I think he is usable, but I don't think he's like some workhorse running back with Chris Carson out. Because one, I think Carlos Hyde is going to be back, and even if he's not, they've shown that they're okay with using Travis Homer, Alex Collins, and whoever else is there. So
now I did my rankings.
I have a bit higher than consensus, but I'm not like super high on him.
I did the rankings with the assumption that Carson would be back. So I think Carson's like my RB 13. But yeah, if he doesn't miss time, I do think like if Hyde's back, Homer's still in the mix, like Dallas is definitely not the type of running back that we had him ranked going into the last week. So anyways, let's get on to the next guy. And I know this is really nitpicky, picking hairs because ultimately you have to do that at the top 10 of the position. But I'm just going to briefly mention I do have Josh Jacobs 3 spots lower than consensus. I mean, Denver is a very past funnel defense this year. Right now, they are the eighth stingiest defense against the run and giving up the 9th most points against opposing quarterback. So I like Jacobs in terms of safety. You know he's going to get the volume. You know he's ultimately going to give you at minimum top 15 type baseline because he's going to get 25 or so touches. But I just don't see his path to being an ECR top 6 running back for this week. And ultimately, the guys that he's ranked over right now, including James Conner, Miles Sanders, Nick Chubb, I just think have much easier paths to reach their ceiling this week. For Nick Chubb and James Conner, it happens to do with their plus matchups. And for Miles Sanders, it happens to do with the overall pass game utilization he has seen when he has been healthy. So I like Jacobs, but I have more so at 9 compared to the ECR 6 he's currently at.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I think it is kind of nitpicky, but yeah, it's not a big deal. Jacobs hasn't shown a huge ceiling thus far this season. He's shown that he's a pretty safe guy to project in terms of workload. And when he gets the workload, he's usually good with it. But for whatever reason, they're actually throwing the ball in Las Vegas. They're not running the ball like crazy, except for that game a couple of weeks ago where it was snowing like crazy. He got like 31 carries. But another guy that another backfield I want to talk about is that I have JaMychal Hasty 11 spots higher than consensus. And the reason is let's stop pretending like McKinnon is now a workhorse running back. He got the majority of work against Green Bay. I actually said that could happen because they were susceptible to receiving backs. And Kyle Shanahan is not just going to pick a running back and stick with them. I guarantee someone's going to disappoint this week. And I'm willing to bet it's going to be McKinnon just because this is Kyle Shanahan. This is what he does. Last time I checked, 1 week ago, we all had JaMychal Hasty in our top 20. And we all thought he was like this smash start against Green Bay. thinking he was the back to own, and we ended up being wrong because Jerick McKinnon took all the work. So I think this is a backfield where you need to rank these guys close together because we don't know which one's going to go off on a week-over-week basis. It's only going to get messier once Mostert comes back.
I fully agree. I mean, if you're looking at it in terms of Kyle Shanahan, by the way, I still have McKinnon at 20. I do think he's going to be the back, but it's just something to monitor. It's never a back you can trust with Kyle Shanahan. Ultimately, you mentioned JaMychal Hasty, Jerick McKinnon. When you're looking at it from the ideology of Kyle Shanahan, basically the way he views it is I have a bunch of just solid, good running backs. Instead of just absolutely wearing out one every single week as my main guy.
It's literally hot hand. Definition of hot hand. Whatever, like if you could bet running backs live, like that's what you want to do because whatever running back has like a good first drive or first quarter is the one that he's going to feature that game.
Yeah. No, fully. And it makes sense from a football standpoint. If you have a bunch of like similarly talented running backs, why not just, instead of wearing one out every single game, get a new one in the next game so that the other one's fresh, vice versa. So every time someone touches the ball out of that backfield, they're fresh, they're ready to go, they're ready to explode, right?
Not to mention they literally get hurt every game. Like Mostert's been hurt a couple times so far this season. Jerick McKinnon's been hurt like in the past of his career. Like he always has running backs get hurt. So why would he try and even feature someone? Because as soon as he does, they just get injured.
For sure. Tevin Coleman as well. But,
yeah, exactly.
Let's get into a guy that we actually like completely disagree on here. Like I have him 5 spots higher than consensus. You have him what, 6 spots lower?
Is it Duke Johnson?
It's Duke Johnson. And I'll make my case first. You can rebuttal with yours, but this is how I view it, okay? He had 20 touches when David Johnson left the game last week, 73 total yards from scrimmage, and a touchdown in the absence. I mean, the matchup against Cleveland, I understand it's not an ideal matchup, but in this running back economy, you don't worry about ideal matchups, especially at this given point of the RB rankings in terms of mid to low RB2. When you're looking at it, we look for backs that have clear roles in their backfield and opportunity for volume. And in my opinion, Duke represents both of those as the only healthy running back on the entire Houston Texans roster. Get this. Get how crazy of a stat this is. He's the only healthy running back on the roster with more than 1 carry on the season. Yeah. So, I mean, I get it. He's kind of risky because we haven't seen it for more than just last week. But I think given his situation, the scarcity at the position, and the projected volume he should see, I think he should safely be a top 20 running back for this week. And he's currently my RB17. I have actually, it's going to show 16 on the screen, but I have Gio at 16, Duke at 17 currently. But give your case as to why you're lower than consensus on him then.
Okay, so some of the guys I have higher than Duke Johnson, it's because I don't expect Duke Johnson to be efficient. 1, because I don't think Duke Johnson's very good. 2, because when he is good, he gets thrown the ball, and Deshaun Watson doesn't really do that very often. And when Duke Johnson runs the ball, listen to a stat that I saw Jared Smola tweet out. Jared Smola tweeted out that Duke Johnson has only exceeded double-digit carries 5 times in his entire career, and he's only gone over 13 carries once. So I don't expect this dude to be efficient with a big workload because that's not who he's been. He's been a scat back his entire career.
So his only game with over 13 carries was last week.
Yes.
In his career. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. And I kind of expect Duke Johnson to be like a 16 carries for 41 yards this week kind of game. Like this is not a good rushing offense. David Johnson wasn't getting it done. Duke Johnson isn't getting it done. This offensive line is not very good at blocking for the run. They're better pass blocking line, and the run game or the run defense of the Browns is very good. So I have guys like J.K. Dobbins and Zach Moss and Wayne Gallman and Jerick McKinnon and Ronald Jones ahead of Duke Johnson because I assume those guys are the primary back in their offense. I know Duke Johnson's obviously the primary back, but most of the guys I just mentioned there are also primary backs, and they're going to be more efficient. So that's why I have them higher.
That might have to be a bet for our live stream on Sunday morning.
Oh, I'll take Rojo if you want to go Rojo straight up against him.
I actually really like Rojo, so I don't even know.
I'll take Gallman. I'll take Gallman straight up.
That was close. Okay, I'll let you know on that one because I do like Gallman too. But
speaking of Rojo, can I talk about that backfield?
Go for it. I have it right here too. Ronald Jones 5 spot higher. Leonard Fournette 15 spots lower. But get into that. Yeah,
what the hell is up with ECR? Why do they think Leonard Fournette is a top 15 running back?
It's RB15.
So, this is a weekly rant for us, and the reason is it's not so much that we love Rojo or anything. I acknowledge there's risk with Rojo, but why are we acting like Leonard Fournette is like this locked and loaded every week starter? Like they have him at RB15. I'm pretty sure you like in that area and in that vicinity, you have David Montgomery lower. David Montgomery's getting the ball. Like he's not second. You have Darrell Henderson lower. Darrell Henderson's getting the ball.
Hey,
I have
Bush.
no idea why they have Fournette that high. Rojo gets the first crack on the ground every single week. If you go back to the first quarter of every single game, it's always Rojo first. The reason he doesn't continue to get the ball throughout the game is because he'll fuck up. And could that happen? Sure. But you don't want to project that because I think they're starting to learn now to not throw him the ball and to just let the kid run the ball because he's way better and the offense is way better when Rojo is running the ball and not Fournette.
Yeah, I mean, Bush. Leonard Fournette is a top 15 running back because he got 6 passes for 42 yards in a blowout against the Saints. That's why he's top 15 running back. What?
Yeah. Oh, he played more snaps than Rojo last week? No shit. He's the third down back, and they were getting smoked. They ran the ball 5 times the whole game.
And one of them was a kneel.
And on the first drive, Rojo got 3 carries of the 4 carries that were running back carries. So,
if we're going to play that like fucking game or that petty game that people want to play on Twitter, then we can do this. Out of the running back carries,
75% of the opportunity.
Yes. So, I mean, it's hilarious that people want to rank Fournette in the top 15 and not even remotely give Rojo any type of credit. Like, I currently have Rojo as my RB20 and Fournette as my RB30.
I think I have them the exact I can't even speak right now. I think I have them the exact same. And I know Fournette's startable. Like he's going to catch some balls, but you need him to score a touchdown or he's not going to be good.
Yeah. No, I'm fully agreeing there. It's fucking ridiculous.
Do you expect Leonard Fournette to be efficient with his receiving work? I don't. He caught 100 balls last year and was like one of the most, or 100. He had 100 targets last year and had like one of the least efficient receiving seasons the running backs ever had.
Oh, I know. It's insane. I'm going to mention one guy and opposed from Fournette. This guy has absolutely, the reason why he's lower has absolutely nothing to do with his overall talent. Okay. Antonio Gibson is one of my favorite young, talented running backs in the league, but I do have him 4 spots lower than consensus. Let me outline as to why that is the case.
I'm going to love him next year. I can already tell, going into the season, we're going to, I don't know where he's going to get drafted, but if he's a 3rd or 4th round pick, I'm going to be all for it. If Justin Fields is their quarterback or something like that.
They build the offensive line. Oh, if they can start off with a Justin Fields in the 1st round and maybe
they draft Penei Sewell and pick up Jameis Winston or something like that. That'd be nice too. Or Cam Newton or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Or even if I was going to mention, if they drafted a Fields and then end up getting a Jackson Carman or a Jalen Mayfield in the 2nd round and building that offensive line, I do think that he's going to be really good for not only the rest of the season, but going into the future. I absolutely love Gibson, the talent. But I mean, there's just so many more proven options this week in this range for me to realistically agree with the ECR 15 he's currently at. By the way, I mean, we don't want to admit this, but J.D. McKissic had 14 fucking targets last week. 14 fucking targets, okay?
Okay, so the one thing about J.D. McKissic, though, is that now everyone's on board. And what happens every time the fantasy industry gets on board with someone? We saw it with Corey Davis a couple weeks ago. He drops a donut. I could totally see J.D. McKissic being terrible this week and everyone being like, oh, but we thought he was the scat back to own there. I could totally see that. In the same vein as someone like Gibson, I have a guy who is really talented, 5 spots lower than consensus, and that's DeAndre Swift. Yeah. And the reason is because 2nd lowest receptions to the running back position in the NFL is I'm blanking on the defense he's going up against, right?
Minnesota. Oh, wait, no, not Minnesota. Who the fuck is it? No, Chicago's playing Minnesota. Who the fuck are the Lions playing right now?
This is great preparation.
Washington.
Washington. Okay, Washington is not allowing very many running backs to catch the ball, and once they catch the ball, it's the lowest receiving yards to the running back position. And we know that this is kind of DeAndre Swift's role in the offense. If nothing else, he is the receiving back. He is the 3rd down back. So the easiest projectable volume we have for DeAndre Swift is receiving work. And if this defense is not going to allow him to be efficient in that manner, and he's a guy who has to be efficient because he doesn't get a lot of volume, then I think he might struggle in this one.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Another guy that I'm lower on that going into the season, when we were both really high on him as a potential mid-round RB2 they can get, that was pretty safe. But man, Melvin Gordon, I have 6 spots lower than consensus. I mean, this is just a mess of a running back committee thus far. These past few weeks.
We differ on this one too.
Really, eh?
I don't think I necessarily have Gordon really high in consensus. I think I do have him a bit higher. Yeah. Or no, I have him 1 spot lower, but I have Lindsey 6 spots lower.
Oh, I don't like either of them. And the reason why, I mean, given the flow of the offense in recent weeks, Melvin hasn't looked good, and they have been one of the most pass-heavy offenses in the past few weeks. Like, I understand that Melvin Gordon would typically be the receiving back of the team, but Drew Lock just hasn't been throwing to his running backs these last few weeks. I mean, guys like Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Tim Patrick, Noah Fant, even Albert O were all more involved in the passing game. That ultimately, if they're going to keep throwing the ball at this percent of clip, unless Gordon falls into the end zone or has a game where he gets 7-8 targets, I just don't see him producing as a top 17, 18 back the way we were expecting him going into the season. I more so have him, again, as my RB 21, I believe, on the week, or 22. I would just rather take chances on more high upside plays and Jerick McKinnon, Ronald Jones, Darrell Henderson, and Duke Johnson, in my opinion.
I think in this matchup against the Raiders, he still has the upside. And as you mentioned, they are throwing the ball a lot, and Melvin Gordon has that role. Philip Lindsay is running a little bit of a route tree now, but Melvin Gordon, as long as he's running routes and he's on the field and they're throwing the ball, he has a chance to get thrown the ball, if that makes any sense. Because as long as he's open, he's going to, like, if Drew Lock doesn't have any options, sometimes it's just the way the offensive game plan worked, where Melvin Gordon didn't get a lot of targets. But I do think he is the primary running back in the passing game. And that's why I have him at RB20, I believe. So I think he's still like a pretty safe, like projectable guy that you can pretty much guarantee for, 15 touches. And usually a lot of those are receptions because, I mean, they aren't running the ball very well. And part of that was against the Falcons last week. The Falcons have been very good against the run recently, which is weird, but it's been true. So I think that's a little bit concerning also, but I think Melvin Gordon is going to bounce back this week. And I think this is just going to be a higher scoring game from the Broncos side in general. So I think there's a good chance that he has a touchdown or he catches a bunch of balls in this one.
For the record, I've talked about it a lot, but I mean, I'm not going to have him ranked extremely high, but if you ask me right now, would I be shocked if after Sunday, we're talking about KJ Hamler getting like 11 targets, 8 receptions, and like 2 touchdowns? I would not. Because, I mean, he had 6 for 75 last week, 10 targets. Jerry Jeudy a little bit banged up going into this game. I mean, I think KJ Hamler could be the most hyped up waiver wire pickup going into next week. I mean, as opposed to Michael Pittman already played. I do think Michael Pittman, as of now, is probably going to be the wide receiver one on that list. You guys will see on Tuesday. But I would not be shocked if we're talking about KJ Hamler ultimately developing that rapport with Drew Lock down the stretch, because they looked really good last week. I mean, the passing game for the Broncos looked really good. Those young receivers, efficient. Drew Lock has been slinging the ball over the yard. Like, I'm excited over the outlook of the potential Denver Broncos passing game for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Drew Lock is actually starting to look half decent for once. Yeah. So I think that's definitely helping out the Broncos offense. One guy I'll just touch on real quick, and then I'll let you get through the rest of your guys. Yep. Singletary, I have 7 spots lower than consensus. I called him Devin Singletary on the Start Sit show because that's basically what Devin Singletary is. He had like 2 touches last week or something like that, 5 touches.
3 catches.
He's not a lead back. He's not going to ever be a lead back. This is a bad rushing offense. 1, because Josh Allen takes away a lot of goal line carries. 2, because their offensive line just doesn't like to block for the run for some reason.
I know.
And Devin Singletary isn't all that talented. Zach Moss has proven to be the better running back. And I think Singletary is basically a guy that needs to house a huge play to return value. And he can't even do that right because he's not even very fast.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I mean, he's got what, like 4.63 speed as a fucking scat
back? He's like if you took Clyde Edwards-Helaire, gave him 5 touches a game, and put him took away half of his like juice, because I think Singletary is not as quick as Edwards-Helaire. They're both good at making people miss, but Edwards-Helaire looks faster for whatever reason. Even though they ran like the same 40 time, Edwards-Helaire looks faster.
Also, Edwards-Helaire is actually like, he can truck people, like not truck people, but he can evade people, if you will. Like, if they get a hand on him, he can get past. Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I agree. I'll just quickly touch upon these last 2 guys real quick, bang them out, and then we'll get into receivers. Rex Burkhead, 10 spots higher than consensus. I mean, Damien Harris is banged up and may not play, whereas Rex Burkhead on Monday Night Football looked really good in his absence, ended up scoring a touchdown on Monday night versus the Jets. I do think overall, it's a mess of an RB situation with the Pats, and I don't really trust any of them. But if I'm going to pick a favorite out of this backfield, it's going to be Burkhead. I mean, I currently have him, I believe, as my RB 31. I have him, my RB 31 on the weekend. I mean,
I have him and Harris like back to back, because I think Harris is going to play. He said he's going to try and play in this game, but even if he does play, he's not a guy that you can count on for like workhorse volume by any means anyway. So
Fully.
like even we saw against the Jets, Damian Harris was the lead back. Everyone like was expecting him to be the lead back, and Rex Burkhead was the highest scoring fantasy guy.
For sure. And the other one I do have hot 18 spots higher. That's only because he's like RB 54 on consensus. This is risky. I know. I'm going to go with Cam Akers, 18 spots higher. I mean, it's disgusting depth at the RB position. It's so scarce. Ultimately, the RB 36 versus the RB 54 isn't really that much of a gap, in my opinion. Yeah. But, I mean, he looked good on his 10 touches. This is a guy, in my opinion, I mentioned it on the waivers, to keep an eye on for the rest of the season. If he keeps on gaining an increased role, I do think he can present really good value down the stretch as he gets acclimated to the NFL. When I'm talking about Cam Akers, we've seen multiple times, we've seen reports. Sean McVay basically said the reason why Cam Akers hasn't been getting more involved because we want to see more from him when he doesn't have the ball in the hands. Well, I mean, 10 touches right before the bye, did have his bye week. Maybe he proved something to Sean McVay to give him more than 10 touches. Maybe he ends up easing into a 1B role to Darrell Henderson. Maybe takes over down the stretch. I don't know. RB 36, I'm not expecting much just this week, but the fact that he still has that type of upside, I'd rather take him over fucking boring-ass options in this range.
Henderson's banged up, too, and he could re-aggravate an injury, and he could – I mean, obviously, you're not going to be – anticipating that when you throw Cam Akers into your lineup, they're like, oh, I need Darrell Henderson to get hurt in this game. But
like, I'm not starting
Cam Akers.
And
that's why you want to keep an eye on Cam Akers mainly. I don't think there's a chance in hell he takes over the backfield if Darrell Henderson's healthy, in my opinion, this year at least, because Darrell Henderson has looked good. And not only that, but Cam Akers is struggling, like Sean McVay said, in areas not when he has the ball in his hands, which means pass protection and probably like preparation and like practice and stuff like that. So I'd imagine there's not a chance in hell that Cam Akers takes over this backfield unless Darrell Henderson gets hurt.
That's fair. Anyways, let's go into receivers. There's a lot of very intriguing options this week. So you can start it off. Go ahead. Start it off with your own team.
I mean, this is I sound like a homer with this one, but I have all three Bucs wide receivers higher than consensus. I have Godwin 7 spots higher. He has a primary matchup against Corn Elder, who sounds like a League of Legends character. And he is going to be toasted by Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin has a claw in his hand, and he'll still toast him. Mike Evans, I have 3 spots higher than consensus, and Antonio Brown, I have 16 spots higher than consensus. And the reason is because all 3 of them have a 25+% advantage according to PFF. And the Panthers have been low-key kind of good against the pass, but it's been against they've kind of beaten up on bad pass offenses. And we saw the Chiefs absolutely toast them last week. We saw the Saints have a good game against them. We've seen actual good passing offense do well against them because they still are a bad defense.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. By the way, Corn Elder, the former Miami great. I don't want to hear any slander on him. I'm kidding. Let's get into it. By the way, for the record, I don't think you're a homer because I did have them listed as well. I ultimately have, I believe it
AB was the confusing one to me. I'm not sure why he was so low in consensus.
I have Godwin 3 spots higher. I have Evans 3 spots higher, and I have AB 11 spots higher. So I fully agree with you there.
Antonio Brown ran 81% of the snaps or whatever in his first game, which is not what I expected to see. I expected him to see like 45%. And Bruce Arians did come out and say he played a bit more because of the game script because they were losing by so much. But I have a feeling Antonio Brown's into a full-time role now, and he is like going to play 80% of the snaps going forward. And if that happens, he has chemistry with Brady. He has the trust of Brady. Obviously, he's going to be a 6, 7, 8 target guy every week, as are the other 2 guys. So I think, Evans maybe not so much because he's been kind of disappointing. But either way, I think this is a game script, and this is a game coming off. We'll play the narrative game again. They got smoked last week, and I think they want to send a message. So I have a feeling this could be a Steelers situation where one of these guys disappoints week over week. But I think all 3 are startable in the top like 30-ish range.
No, again, I fully agree. The guy I'm going to get into, I have 4 spots higher than consensus. I talked about his quarterback when we mentioned quarterbacks, but DJ Chark, 4 spots higher. I currently have him as my wide receiver 13, I believe. He's my wide receiver 13. He's the consensus wide receiver 17. Okay. 33 targets, 33 across his last 3 games, including 12 in the first game for Jake Ludon under center. Like, the main factor here, I probably going into the week, I thought I was going to have him lower than consensus, but when Jair Alexander, the number 1 PFF rated corner, is ruled doubtful, that's going to significantly change my rankings. I mean, Chark has the opportunity.
Chenault's not playing either. Too.
Yeah, Chenault out as well. Chark has the opportunity to absolutely shred against what has been a lackluster Green Bay defense across these last few weeks. even when Alexander was healthy. So, I mean, I think we could see an absolute league-winning type second-half surge for DJ Chark. We got this game against Green Bay without their top corner. His next 4 games after this are all against bottom 10 defenses against the wide receiver position. Like DJ Chark.
If only one of us picked him as a my guy.
There you go.
Oh, I did. That was me, right?
But
yeah,
are you the one that has him in your home league?
I do. Yeah, I have.
Oh, okay. You do too. Okay.
I almost traded him, dude. I almost traded him for a bag of biscuits too. Nothing. I almost threw him in as like a throw-in for a trade.
You were talking about if he didn't snap last week, he was a drop candidate. So
yeah,
good thing he snapped.
Literally. Yeah, he snapped. The reason was because he was getting it was a backup quarterback. I didn't know how good Jake Luton would have been.
Yeah.
But either way, I think DJ Chark is definitely he's been pretty solid when you look at his whole like season with non-biased like opinions. You're like, okay, he's had some bad games, but he's also had, even in his bad games, a lot of targets. So, I mean, you got to figure that eventually he's going to just start playing better. And we saw that last week. He just started playing better.
Like, I know you and Mikey have been handling the trade target show, but I'm just going to briefly mention it, man. Like, DJ Chark is a really good buy low at this point, in my opinion. I know he's coming off a big game, so maybe, like, it's not considered buying low because you could have bought him lower a couple weeks ago, but I still think it's going to be low based off his comparative value he's going to have, especially across these next 4 games. You need wins these next 4 games. I mean, 3 of the teams that he plays are in the bottom 4 against the opposing receivers, and the other one is 21st ranked at giving points, aka I think I said top 10, but it's 11th. Okay, sue me.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And this dude has a ceiling. We know he has a ceiling week over week. He caught a 73-yard touchdown before I could even turn on red zone last week.
Yeah, I know. Oh, it pained me because I last second put Jonathan Taylor into my lineup over him.
Never trust Jonathan Taylor.
Oh,
I have Jonathan Taylor as my RB1 in our FSE, like our listener league, and I'm somehow in like second place in that league. Don't ask me how.
Dude, I have McCaffrey and Lamar Jackson as my first 2 picks, and DJ Moore as my first 3 picks in that league. It's not fun.
Yeah. Currently, so I'm in 7 leagues. I'm in the playoff race in 5. Like I have a good chance that I could actually win the championship. Yep. 4 of the 5 leagues outside my home league, my main league I'd care most about, is the only one I don't have Austin Eckler in.
Damn. Yeah. Talking about Scott's Tots. I think me and you have probably got the biggest injury bug across this entire year.
I got Mostert and Eckler coming back, and I'm still 6-3.
And then I lost Dak, McCaffrey.
And I lost Barkley too.
Yeah, like it's a fucking mess in that league. But get into your next.
Let's run through some of these here. We're taking up a lot of time. All right. So Brandon Ayuk, I have him 7 spots higher than consensus. I already talked about it with Nick Mullins. Despite New Orleans clamping Tampa Bay last game, they're really not that good against receivers. I expect Ayuk to maintain his kind of number 1 receiver role that he's established for himself since Debo's been out, and now that George Kittle is out as well. I know Richie James kind of stepped up last week, but that was because Ayuk was out with COVID, or on the COVID high contact tracing or whatever. So I don't expect Richie James to suddenly be the number 1 receiver in this offense. Another guy I want to mention too is AJ Green. I have 8 spots higher than consensus.
Wow.
First time this entire season I've been higher on AJ Green than consensus. I'm not a huge Green fan, but he's gotten double-digit targets 2 of the last 3 games, and I have him at wide receiver 40, and I'm 8 spots higher. So I'm like, okay, like I think he deserves to be in wide receiver 4 range. Like, geez.
Lie. I don't even know where I have AJ Green. I don't even remember ranking him. I don't think I have him ranked. Okay.
Yeah, either way. Another guy I just want to run through real quick too is Darius Slayton. I have 6 spots higher than consensus. He's probably going to see Darius Slay in shadow coverage, but I think this is going to be one of the sneaky high-scoring games of the slate. I don't know why. I just have this sinking feeling that Carson Wentz and the Eagles' offense on the other side of things is going to get things going. Miles Sanders coming back, Dallas Goedert now healthy, Jalen Reagor, Travis Fulgham. I think this is going to be a sneaky high-scoring game, and I think Darius Slayton, all he really needs is one big play. And I mean, I still only have him back end wide receiver 3 range. Like, it's not like I have him in my top 20 or anything.
Like, I have him a few spots higher as well, so I can definitely see that. I'm going to talk about a few guys again. Justin Jefferson, 5 spots lower. His matchup against Jalen Johnson, who in my opinion has been arguably the best rookie corner thus far this year. It's pretty bad. I mean,
you ripping on your own corner?
Trevon Diggs is hurt, so
Okay.
We'll give him that. But the range of outcomes for Jefferson is just pretty hysterical when you actually look for him. He has 4 games with under 45 receiving yards and 3 games with over 100. With
I'm
2
pretty
of
sure
those
he has
being
over like
160.
150 in 3 of
Yeah,
those games too.
yeah. Like I would lean on the cautious end of ranking him, given that the matchup is hard and he's so boom bust. But I have that wide receiver 24. If you told me this time next week that he finishes the wide receiver 5 on the week, I would not be shocked. I just think that I would cautiously lean on the lower end of the spectrum, given the matchup, rather than his ceiling that he has shown over the stretch, if you will. So, gonna mention that quickly. Also, another guy I'm 4 spots lower on is gonna be Devontae Parker. I know, I get it. I have 2 5 spots higher. Devontae Parker 4 spots lower. What the fuck are you doing, Danny? Like, that makes no sense. At least stick to the status quo here. But this isn't really necessarily an indictment on Parker, but just more so tails. In my opinion, he tails other wide receiver 3s in this range. This is just the low ceiling he's really shown in 2020. I mean, this is a guy, you need 9 to 13 half PPR points. He'll probably get you there. But I mean, guys that are ranked after him right now, Antonio Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Jerry Jeudy, have just shown much higher ceilings. And if I'm picking a wide receiver 3 in a position that is so deep and has so many floor plays as there are available at wide receiver, I would just much rather take the upside shot of any of those 3 receivers that I currently mentioned. So I don't mind Parker, but just give me the upside of the guys that are currently ranked behind him.
Yeah, a couple other guys that I have higher than consensus. I have Jarvis Landry, who I mentioned. I like the Browns passing game a lot better than ECR seems to like him for some reason. And then a guy that you're going to talk about, I'm sure, is Jacoby Myers. I have 4 spots higher than consensus. I mean, we've seen high target volume out of him. That's basically why I have him higher. Do I think he's like the greatest receiver in the world? Or was he going up against Deshaun Austin, who's terrible? I think it's probably the latter, but I still think Jacoby Myers has some value because we've seen the target volume since – I mean, he's been the only show in town there for the last couple of weeks.
For sure. Now that you mentioned him, I'm going to get into him. I have Jacoby Myers 7 spots higher than consensus right now. And right now, what I got written down, volume. 30 targets across these last 3 games with Edelman banged up. Again, the expected matchup. Going into the season, you hear the name Marcus Peters, you're trembling. You're like, oh my God, if my receiver's playing against Marcus Peters, he's a very good top 5, top 8 type corner in the league. But in reality, due to performance, he's actually been average at best. He's the 31st ranked cornerback on the season, according to PFF. So I get it. Jacoby Myers is an unproven asset. We haven't seen him really perform prior to even these last 3 games. But in my opinion, those 30 targets are just so tough to ignore. He's gained Cam's trust coming off a 16 target game last week. He's just clearly the wide receiver 1 in a barren receiver room. And ultimately here, I view him as a high upside wide receiver 3 type. I know he's probably going to be viewed by the consensus a lot more as a wide receiver 4, but you don't find guys that are getting 10 targets per game across the last 3 games very often. In my opinion, who he kind of reminds me of, given that he's kind of underrated but getting the volume, and like with Jamison Crowder. What Jamison Crowder was.
All right, I see that.
I was going to say, what Jamison Crowder was earlier this year, every single week, this guy was like a top 20, top 24 receiver. And I saw like a funny tweet at the time. It was like, oh, Jamison Crowder, another good week. Oh, yeah, he's a solid wide receiver 3 type. That's how everybody on fantasy Twitter really acknowledged him. But in reality, I mean, I think this guy's still.
He's like a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I think he's wide receiver 10 on points per game right now.
Yeah.
Like, and everybody's like, oh, yeah, he's a fine wide receiver 3. Like,
yeah, see, that's when we go to the offseason, one of the things that we got to keep in mind is when we're like, oh, he has top 10 upside, and people are like, no, he doesn't. That's outrageous. It's like, yeah, but like Jamison Crowder put up top 10 numbers. Like top 10 upside is a little easier to achieve than some people give it credit for.
For sure. And I'll also mention, you mentioned Jacoby Myers. I'm going to also mention Jalen Reagor. I know, another homer pick, if you will, because I had him on the waiver show. But Jalen Reagor, 13 spots higher. 13, you heard that correctly. I am all in on Jalen Reagor, and I think this is his blow-up week. Again, there's expected shadow coverage to be had with James Bradbury currently going against Travis Fulgham. And Reagor, in his first game back from injury, had 6 targets against Dallas. They had their bye week this week, another week to get acclimated with Carson Wentz coming off a poor performance from Wentz himself. I just think this is going to be the first game of many where Jalen Reagor could be in a league-winning type rookie receiver down the stretch, give you a wide receiver 3 type of floor every single week. I'm not going to rank them there just yet because he hasn't proven it, but talking about ranking him at wide receiver 34, I would absolutely do that because I think the upside is tremendous with him.
Yeah, I knew you were going to bring up Jalen Reagor because, but as I mentioned with the Darius Slayton thing, I think this is the week that we see the Eagles offense kind of show us what they were capable of earlier in the season, because not only is Travis Fulgham emerged, Jalen Reagor's back, Dallas Goedert's back, Miles Sanders back. I'm pretty sure Alshon Jeffrey's supposed to play in this game, which I don't think that guy's played since 2018. But apparently he's back, which, I mean, if nothing else, draws some attention away from a guy like Jalen Reagor. So I think this offense is in store to have a pretty solid outing. And I think the Giants defense is kind of playing above the rim right now. They're not very talented. They're just well coached, I think. I know their defensive coordinator is getting some head coaching buzz because he's really coaching around a unit that doesn't really have any pass rush or coverage outside of James Bradbury. So it's kind of impressive what they've done. I mean, he turned Blake Martinez into a half decent coverage linebacker.
Yeah, no, isn't he like a top 10 ranked linebacker in terms of coverage right now?
Passer rating allowed. Yeah, he's literally top 10. A couple guys I want to talk about that I'm lower on. Boyd, I have 12 spots lower than consensus. It's not that I don't really like Boyd. It's more so that I think the Bengals offense struggles in this game. I think they're going to have a rough time. Burrow only completed 19 passes for 183 yards against Baltimore in week 5, which is kind of the type of situation I expect facing the Steelers this week, where Burrow's just under a crazy amount of pressure. He can't really get the ball out. And I know Boyd's the easy target. He's the easy one to hit. He's over the middle of the field. I just don't think Burrow is going to have like a high ceiling type game. And when you're projecting receivers going into a game, especially a receiver core like Cincinnati that has a couple good options, I don't want to project them very highly, knowing that this offense and this offensive line in particular is going to struggle.
Yeah, no, I agree there. I do have both of them a few spots lower than consensus in terms of Higgins and Boyd. I'm going to talk about Marvin Jones, who I have 4 spots lower than consensus. And this one kind of confused me. I mean, first of all, Washington football team is the number 1 stingiest team against opposing wide receivers. And Jones, although Kenny Golladay has missed the time, people want to project him for an increased volume, yada, yada, yada. He has 6 total receptions.
Did you see that picture on Kenny Galladay's Instagram, by the way?
I didn't. What was it?
Oh, he has this picture of him with his his girlfriend or whoever it is, and she's just like throwing it back on his hip. She's bent over ass on his crotch or whatever. And the fantasy football counselor's like, "Hey, your groin ain't injured or some shit." I saw Peter Overset tweeted that. I laughed so hard.
Don't kill me. Maybe that's just a type of rehab for it, you know?
Yeah, literally.
But yeah, no, Marvin Jones has 6 total catches in the last 2 weeks without Kenny G. He's a touchdown-dependent wide receiver 4 in a brutal matchup. Just no thanks. Why is that a thing? No. And then the other one I'm going to mention doesn't really have to do with big discrepancies against ECR. Again, I have Juju 3 spots higher, Claypool 2 spots lower. This just more so, in my opinion, highlights the reascendance, if you will, of Juju Smith-Schuster. Again, he had 29 targets across these last 3 games. He had 28 targets in the first 5 games of the season. It's crazy when you compare his usage recently versus usage at the beginning of the season. He has the best matchup on the field for Pittsburgh, according to PFF, currently with an 8% advantage over Mackenzie Alexander. I just really view as Juju to be the lead receiver and ultimately a very talented receiving core currently for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yep. I definitely don't disagree there. I have 2 guys I want to talk about. They're basically the same type of receiver and the same type of issue I have with both of them. That's Curtis Samuel, I have 9 spots lower, and Christian Kirk, who I have 7 spots lower. And my thing with them is I just don't trust their floors. I've seen their ceilings. I know what their ceilings are. They can make big plays happen, but I don't trust their floors. And as such, I'm going to rank them where they deserve to be ranked, which is that wide receiver 36 to 42 range. Both of these guys are in the top 30 in ECR, and I don't agree with it. I think that's too high. Even though I know Samuel has the best matchup on the field in the Bucs game, but I can't rank him that high. He's ECR 30, which is ridiculous.
That's insane. All right, let's get into tight ends then. If you're done with your receivers,
we could probably breeze through these ones too.
For sure. But you know what? before we do that though, if you guys have made it this far in the video, enjoying the content, enjoying what you are seeing, make sure you go smash that like button. Really helps us gain in the, as we love to say, YouTube algorithm, and really pushes the channel over the top towards getting more recognition around the community. So we know a lot of you have been appreciative, enjoying the content. Appreciate all of you personally messaging us, thanking us for the content, thanking us for the work that we have done to help you with your fantasy teams. We appreciate all of you in supporting us through these, 6-7 months that we've been a channel. I mean, it's been a breeze. It's been definitely an enjoyable time being able to help you guys in any way, shape possible. And if you guys haven't been able to experience that, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Again, mention the likes helping us out. Well, adding subscribers also helps as well. So I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, if you're enjoying it, you're enjoying the channel, you're watching videos, you're not subscribed yet, make sure you go hit that subscribe button. I mean, the ratio of not subscribed to subscribed on the channel is still pretty significant. So if you want to help contribute to combating that, press that button.
Yeah, and hit the bell icon and make sure you guys join us for all of our live streams as well, where you can get your questions personally answered, or as Danny mentioned, you can reach out to us on Twitter and stuff, and we'll be happy to answer questions there. Okay, into the tight end position. And the reason I say this is going to be quick is because it's the same guys we always have. Evan Ingram, of course, we have 7 spots lower on consensus because
both of us
consensus has a hard on for Evan Ingram. I understand that Evan Ingram gets volume, but he's still not that good. So I have him at 12. ECR has him at 5. They were waiting for one good week just to throw him back at top as a top 5 tight end. I totally disagree with this. He belongs in the back end tight end 1 range because that's how he's performed. That's the type of volume he's getting. His volume is not valuable. It's close to the line of scrimmage targets. So I'm going to continue to rank him there. And then my weekly rant on just real quick, I want to get into my weekly rant on Trey Burton, who already played. I just had to take a victory lap because he sucked, because Trey Burton sucks. I'm not ranking him in my top 20. Sorry.
For the record, I forgot to adjust my rankings before the game, so I got stuck with him at fucking 16.
Yeah, that's where his ECR is.
I know it got stuck there because I forgot to adjust it before the game. So
that's disrespectful. He's ECR 16 when Irv Smith, who I have 22? Higher than consensus, is 22, which is ridiculous. Why is Irv Smith lower than Trey Burton?
Yeah,
by 6 spots.
Because he's got the wildcat factor, you know.
It's ridiculous.
Okay. I'll mention a couple guys. First of all, I have Gronk 3 spots higher than consensus. I mean, this is just a barren position, and give me a guy coming off of a bad game against the Saints. I do think he's going to be fine. He still got a decent amount of targets last week. I don't know. Yeah, he's currently ECR 7. I have him at 4. I don't know why he's behind guys he's behind Evan Ingram.
Of course he is. Of course he's behind Evan Ingram.
That tells you it. Eric Ebron, I know you're going to mention him as well. Yep. I also have 3 spots ahead of consensus as my tight end 7. Going up against the Bengals, I mean, I do think that could be a fun matchup for a lot of Pittsburgh weapons. I do think they're going to be able to get to 9-0 in this one. What are your thoughts on Ebron?
Ebron has been a consistent guy. He gets 5 to 6 targets per week, and he gets 40 receiving yards, maybe gets into the end zone, maybe gets 60 receiving yards, catches 4 or 5 balls. He's basically what we think Hunter Henry is.
Oh, I'll get into that. Don't you worry.
Yeah. So, okay, one thing I really want to mention real quick is to provide a little bit more value for you guys instead of us just ripping on ECR. I'll just read off who I have from the tight end 4 to the tight end 12. So these are the guys that I would say are you need to start them this week. So I would say TJ Hawkinson I have at 4, Noah Fant at 5, Dallas Goedert at 6, Eric Ebron at 7, Jonnu Smith at 8, who's already played, Jared Cook at 9, Austin Hooper at 10, Hunter Henry at 11, Evan Ingram at 12. If you have any of those guys, those are the order that I would start them in. And I mean, I've gotten a lot of questions this week about guys like Dallas Goedert and Noah Fant and Jared Cook and Eric Ebron, Austin Hooper and stuff. Those guys are top 10 tight ends, all of them for me. So you can definitely feel comfortable with rolling those guys out in your lineup over guys like Jimmy Graham or Robert Tonyan or even Mike Gesicki, Jordan Reed, guys like that. I have all those guys ranked higher.
I can't agree with the Jimmy Graham one, man.
I have him at 13, so he's right behind Evan Ingram.
I have him spend 7 spots ahead of consensus. I have him as my tight end 8. I imagine he's been getting the volume, man. I mean, he's had a couple quote unquote disappointing weeks where he's still gotten targets. I mean, he's what we want Hunter Henry to be. I don't know why we keep ranking Hunter Henry ahead of him if Hunter Henry has not been able to outproduce him.
Because Hunter Henry has a better quarterback. That's why I continue to rank Hunter Henry there.
Talking about Hunter Henry, let's just talk about it. This is going to be, for the record, we got to do a Graham versus Hunter Henry bet this week too, because
all right, I'll do that.
I have Hunter Henry. Again, he would be 16, but fucker Trey Burton, like I couldn't move. But I don't know, that makes my claim even funnier because I have Hunter Henry as my tight end 17 on the week. Like, what the fuck has he just done to deserve any type of other ranking than that?
Okay, but you can't possibly tell me you have Hunter Henry ranked like behind freaking Mike Gesicki. Like Hunter Henry deserves to be ahead of Mike Gesicki. He deserves to be ahead of Jordan Reed. Please don't tell me Jordan Reed.
No, I don't. I have him one spot lower than Hunter Henry. Irv Smith. I'd rather Irv Smith. Jonnu, for the record, I couldn't adjust Jonnu. He's stuck here at 13. He would have been like 8 or 9 for me. But anyways, Jonnu, Evan Ingram, Robert Tonyan, Jared Cook, Austin Hooper. Give me all those guys. Jimmy Graham, all those guys over.
I thought I was going to be higher on Austin Hooper than consensus. I'm actually one spot lower. I'm at 10. I was like, I kind of want to move him up, though, to be honest. I kind of like him better than Ebron and Jared Cook this week.
Yeah, I agree. And talking about Irv Smith, I mean, we mentioned him. Like, he's currently ECR 22. Like, what? Why?
Yeah, I don't know why, man. Like, even last week, he gets 4 targets and 2 touchdowns. Like,
yeah. No, and I talked about on the waiver show. He had 4 targets. Kirk Cousins only threw the ball 20 times. Like, what else do you want from the guy?
Yeah, and my thing against the funny thing about that is that I was last week when I was talking about Justin Jefferson and talking about Adam Thielen and Irv Smith, I was like, Kirk Cousins is not going to throw the ball 19 times again. Well, he did. So,
yeah.
But I think this game, I mean, the game that they're going into is going to be a slugfest again, but hopefully they throw the ball more than 20 times.
Agreed. And I'll quickly mention him. I mean, this is a complete dart throw. You're in a 2 tight end league or whatever the fuck.
Oh my God, I just saw the name.
Yeah. Jacob Hollister. I mean, he had a decent game last week. If he gets involved down the stretch, I mean, this position is fucking shit regardless.
Yeah, dude, Mark Andrews is my tight end too, and he's been garbage the past couple weeks. That's how shit the position. I mean, Kittle is hurt and Kelsey's on bye, so that's part of it. But
like Andrews is my 5, but like I can understand the rationale because he's been getting the targets. Like,
and this is a good matchup for the Ravens passing game, and I think they're going to be able to get on track. They torched this team last year. So I have a feeling Lamar and the Ravens are going to roll in this one.
For the record, I talked about it in the Discord. Lamar is my quarterback 7 on the week. The one thing, or the main problem with what's been with the Pats on defense this year has been the play of their front 7. If the Pats are not able to stop the Ravens rushing attack early on,
they're not going to be able to stop it.
Which they won't. Lamar Jackson, if you told me going into next week that he's coming off an 85-yard 2 rushing touchdown game, absolutely wouldn't. And if he's able to do that on the ground, it's going to set up so many play action opportunities to Mark Andrews, his number 1 weapon. For the record, Marquise Brown, like, get the fuck out of my mention still. Like, fuck off. Like, no, I'm done with that.
I know. I loved Marquise Brown coming into the year, but yeah. I mean, man, he's just so inconsistent. And even when he is consistent, like in terms of targets, like Lamar can't hit him. He can't make the catch. Like, it's just a bad situation. And to be honest, imagine if the Ravens had DeCale and Metcalf on their team. That'd be kind of sick. Obviously, man. Metcalf would not be as good as he is without Russell Wilson. Yeah. Let's just make that perfectly clear. But I still think that would have been it. I actually wanted them to pick him. I remember I mocked him to the Ravens that year because I was like, one of my rationales was, they run the ball so much and they have this like tight end on the perimeter blocking for them basically with DK Metcalf, the way he's built. Like, imagine just run a stretch play to DK Metcalf's side because he can block on the perimeter too.
Yeah, no, I remember I wanted them to take N'Keal Harry. So, I mean, Marquise Brown is basically slightly better than them. Can we even say distinctively he's a lot better than him? Because Marquise Brown has been shite. Like, yeah, no.
Imagine if Marquise Brown was Terry McLaurin instead on the Ravens. That'd be nice.
Wasn't Marquise Brown and N'Keal Harry the 2 first receivers taken?
Yeah, they were.
And then the second round, you got guys like Debo, AJ Brown, fucking Terry McLaurin in the 3rd, DK Metcalf.
There's a long-standing like group of people that are like, second round receivers are better than first round receivers. Like, because if you go back, like, if you go to every draft class, like 2016, it was like the Fuller year, who was like Fuller's like the only good receiver from that first round. Obviously, they had Coleman and Treadwell, and they had like Michael Thomas and Sterling Shepard and Tyler Boyd in like the second round, and like everyone else. The next year was like Chris Godwin and freaking all these other Juju Smith-Schuster and all these other receivers in the second round.
Was it the 2014 draft, for the record? Like the first, other than Odell, and
Odell, Mike
Evans.
Evans, Brandon Cooks, and Calvin
Yeah,
Benjamin
Sammy
were like the first
Watkins.
round.
Sammy
Sammy
Watkins as well.
Watkins,
The second round had guys like Allen
Allen
Robinson.
Robinson,
Uh,
Devontae Adams, Jarvis
yeah,
Landry.
yeah, like it's fucked when you think about it. Like
Yeah.
there's not much of a difference because it ultimately depends on the landing spot of all
Oh,
those
it
guys.
completely depends on the landing
Yeah,
spot, which is why I think, I mean, running backs, it depends on the landing spot too, because coaching matters a lot for running backs. But I think we need to really take into account how big landing spot is when we think about receivers. Because I know coming into the year, people's dynasty rankings didn't change from like their pre-draft rankings, and that's not how it should be. We should have seen the opportunity for a guy like Justin Jefferson and the landing spot for a guy like Brandon Ayuk. And the opportunity, I mean, obviously, we probably couldn't have predicted T. Higgins because we thought AJ Green would be kind of okay for this
we
year.
also thought T. Higgins wasn't very good. So,
but yeah, like we coming into the season, a lot of people were just like, okay, so like Ruggs, Lamb, and Judy are still the top 3 receivers, including myself. Those were my top 3 receivers, and we probably shouldn't have thought of it like that. I know I was higher on a guy like Pittman because I saw the opportunity and shit.
Yeah. Oh, speaking like again, well, I'll mention it on the waivers as well before we get out of here quick. But Michael Pittman is the wide receiver 1 on the Colts now. Like it's
finally.
Just, I mean, the last 2 weeks since really coming out of that injury, 15 targets, looked like the best player. I mean, he had a 21-yard fucking end around. If you ask me going into the season, I would think Michael Pittman would be used in a playmaker fashion where he'd have like a 20-yard rush. Like, no, he's a possession receiver, but he's shown to be explosive in the open field, making guys miss.
I still never have been able to find a good comparison for Pittman.
Allen Robinson is mine for him. Like
I still don't see that. He has he runs like, I don't want to say he runs like Keenan Allen. He runs like upright. It looks like he's not running very fast.
He's not, to be fair, but
it's weird. He runs like he's like a dad chasing his son out of like a bakery. Like he runs weird.
That's fair. I mean, I think he ran like a 4.5 or whatever. So
yeah, he ran a good time. He ran like a 4.51 or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see what happens. But anyways, let's get out of here.
Yeah, we're on a huge tangent right now. Quick? No. As Danny mentioned, you guys like this video if you enjoyed any of it. Comment any of your thoughts down below. Trade targets, start sit, whatever you want to talk about. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell icon so you're notified anytime we go live or anytime we post videos. Because I mean, we have no rhyme or reason for doing anything on this channel. And then join the Discord as well. We have a lot of people active in there talking about their teams, talking about other people's teams, giving other people advice. If me and Danny aren't able to answer a question of yours, then we have plenty of guys in there that are knowledgeable that can answer questions for you as well. So make sure you're joining up in there. And then, yeah, like subscribe to the channel. Stick around. The fantasy season's over. We're not stopping. We're going to continue to come at you guys with draft content, with free agency stuff, like all that kind of stuff. Yeah, fun stuff, all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about DFS for the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you guys are sticking around for that as well.
For sure. Definitely going to be a fun year for the Fantasy Stock Exchange. So make sure you're not missing out. Have those bell icon clicked where you're notified every single upload that we post. But aside from that, we're going to get out of here. We will see you guys on Sunday morning for our weekly live stream before kickoff. Anyways, this is Danny. That's Bush. Take it easy, y'all.